Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to discuss the major astrological energies of November 2024. Yes, the 11th month of the year has arrived. And the cosmos is not going to give us much of a break this month. So we're going to discuss what is unfolding, including the first of 3 Mars-Pluto oppositions. We have Jupiter continuing to sextile Chiron. Saturn will station direct this month. Pluto moves back into Aquarius. And we have quite the wild card Mercury retrograde that begins towards the end of the month, as Mercury will be in Sagittarius for 2 months and make ongoing T-squares to both Jupiter and Saturn. So quite a bit to cover today, and we're going to break it down here in chronological order. So let's begin with the Scorpio new moon that kicks off the month on November 1st. This new moon occurs at 9 degrees 35 minutes of Scorpio in your chart and signals where you are beginning a new cycle this month based on the Scorpio themes. This is where you are being encouraged to face something in yourself that you want to evolve or do differently, that you want to level up, and that you want to feel more powerful around. So as November begins, consider, where am I ready to power up based on something that has previously limited me or held me back? This particular new moon is trining Saturn retrograde in Pisces, and that signals strength, stability, a sense of commitment to whatever this intention is. And that can certainly give you more fortitude to look at where you're ready to approach an area of your life with higher consciousness and, more importantly, more self-love, self-acceptance, the understanding that you are a powerful being, that you came here with magical gifts, and that the Scorpio energy can pull you into deeper wisdom that you haven't fully connected with. I have a video for you on YouTube going through more of the specifics of the Scorpio new moon. So please check that out, especially because this new moon is supercharged. It has a lot going on in the full chart, and we're also experiencing it during the first of 3 Mars-Pluto oppositions. Now, both Mars and Pluto are rulers of Scorpio energy. And on November 3rd, they have an exact opposition with Mars at 29 degrees 45 minutes of Cancer and Pluto at 29 degrees 45 minutes of Capricorn. This opposition is applying a very intense pressure that we are sitting with. We are in the discomfort of growth, managing our emotions, reactions, and responses, seeing how polarizing the energies on the planet are, observing a standoff, feeling it as well, and wondering, how do I manage this responsibly? How do I remain in my own internal sovereign power without being pulled too strongly into one side or the other? But the truth is, when we have an intense opposition, it's normal to feel that seesaw effect and to teeter-totter between the two extremes. We're learning how to integrate them. We're learning how that Mars in Cancer wants to feel safe, wants to feel in control of the emotions as they rise up, wants to also not be easily rocked or swayed or pulled out of the heart space. And this is the challenge right now, is that the Cancer energy wants connection, wants to know where it's safe to attach and to go into the truth of one's feelings. Cancer is very kind, empathetic, loving. And so where have we disconnected from our heart spaces because we're in this intense tug of war, or we're feeling these extreme energies that pulls us out of our hearts to our own detriment? How do we remain in a place of deep trust during a grand evolutionary cycle, which has a lot of uncertainty? And that's where that Mars in Cancer will want to protect and defend, will want to assert even an emotional boundary in order to maintain a sense of internal trust. So as these energies oppose one another, we also have Pluto in Capricorn that is executive decision making, no mercy, take no prisoners, nothing is off limits. Pluto is the stronger force here, and Pluto is revealing what needs to be destroyed because it is no longer a frequency match for the consciousness on the planet and for humanity's evolutionary growth. Pluto brings up rage. And in this opposition to Mars in Cancer, there is a lot of emotional turmoil in the collective. There's a lot circulating, and this isn't going to ease up. Rather, the energy is asking us to be more responsible in how we manage it, in how we come home to ourselves, Mars in Cancer, in how we find our own peace, and in understanding that this is bigger than us. This is bigger than the individual. This is a much deeper story that is unfolding, and Pluto will ultimately prevail in destroying what needs to be removed. So then that brings our attention to how we handle that, how we understand what is changing permanently, how we are changing permanently, and how we each deal with that, especially at a core personal level. Now, thankfully, the opposition is not happening on its own, as there is what's called a cradle aspect in effect as well. And I do have a video for you on YouTube discussing that if you want to check it out. I go through the chart of what a cradle is, and it essentially includes two planets in an opposition, Mars and Pluto in this case, and then two additional planets making trines and sextiles, which are beneficial, supportive, harmonious, and bring in other elements that create a container. So in this cradle, which looks like a trapezoid, because astrology is basically just a bunch of shapes coming together and moving in the cosmos, the energies in play include Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees retrograde and Uranus in Taurus at 26 degrees retrograde. So these are the other two outer planets that are signifying we are in an ongoing container of change. And it's how we contain that energy within us that makes all the difference. It's also how we're able to detach and allow energy to move through us without it becoming stagnant or stuck, to be vessels of the cosmos, to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, to understand it's all energy and motion, which is what emotion could be seen as. E for energy, emotion is energy and motion, and it's just meant to continue to move through us and show us all the diverse energies we feel, sense, and tune into. And how can we remain aware of the bigger process while in our daily experiences? Meaning, how do we not overly attach or overly connect to one particular expectation or outcome? How do we allow ourselves to go higher into the divine process of the universe, where we can feel stability and security that doesn't exist on the earthly plane as regularly? So in other words, as we surf these waves and as we navigate through a very big chapter, we're also aware of the necessity to maintain our own energetic well-being and to use our tools to do so, to use your spiritual tools, your physical healing, to go to anything that helps you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, to actively use your tools daily to prioritize your well-being, because that is what you have control over. That is always what you have control over. So this is a reminder that during the big cycles here, as they persist and unfold, what are you doing to honor what you need and understand that you need support right now? And how are you giving it to yourself? It's also important to look at if your energy is too much in your mind. Are you overthinking? Do you have mental fatigue? Are you going through various scenarios and outcomes and only in the mental space? If so, then you need to drop down into the body. You need to go for the walk, do the yoga poses, really focus on deep breathing. You got to balance all of that mental energy with the physical, and also open into the higher heart space. The higher heart is an energy field located behind the back in the upper back. And the higher heart is where we can be holding worry, stress, guilt, burdens emotionally. And it's where we also need to call in greater trust, compassion, faith, understanding, so that we're holding those frequencies as well. All of this will be part of our ongoing work into 2025. Now, as I mentioned, this Mars-Pluto opposition that's exact on November 3rd is the first of 3. The second opposition will occur January 3rd, when Mars retrograde is at 1 degree of Leo and Pluto is at 1 degree of Aquarius. The energy has now shifted into the fixed signs where there is more of a rigid standoff, less desire to buzz or compromise. And even with Mars retrograde in Leo, there's less of a desire to stand down, even though there will be pressure from Pluto in Aquarius. Then we'll have the third opposition between Mars and Pluto at the end of April 2025. That will be on April 26th and 27th, when Mars is still in the retrograde shadow territory. So this ongoing battle truly won't be released until May 2025. So the energy here is going to intensify potentially in the first half of 2025. And we're also going to be given opportunities to integrate again the oppositional forces of Leo and Aquarius, where the Leo energy is concerned about self, what is best for me, what do I want, what do I desire, where do I feel strong in my creation abilities, and how I can courageously trust what I'm going after. And this energy is opposing Pluto in Aquarius, the collective, the audience, the group. What are the people saying? Where is the revolution happening, and where is rebellion rising up against leadership forces, those in charge? Especially in Leo, it relates to royalty, monarchs, crowned leaders of any kind. And then the opposition from Pluto in Aquarius is being overtaken and those leaders being brought down. This is, of course, just a general understanding of the energy. I will be talking about these energies as we move further into 2025, of course, and by then we'll have more context and how to apply this particular opposition. Now, amongst all this tension that we've discussed, we also have support from Jupiter in Gemini retrograde, sextiling Chiron in Aries retrograde throughout most of the month. Each of these planets moves from 20 to 19 degrees in November, and that means that these energies are helping with solutions, remedies, options, and processes for healing and harmonizing the mind with the body. That would be one way to interpret this. So we have support here for understanding what is best for our mental powers and how our body is feeling these energies. Chiron in Aries connects to blood flow, anger, impulsiveness, inflammation, rosacea, burns, rashes, anything coming through the skin that's communicating something is out of balance and not in proper working order. The Jupiter influence can give you that remedy or option to pursue. And as these two are working together, I feel that there is support for calming anything that has been overactive or overused, as well as giving you insights into what you can do on a daily basis. To understand this more specifically in your own chart, you would look at where transiting Jupiter in Gemini retrograde at 20 and 19 degrees is connecting with transiting Chiron in Aries retrograde, also at 20 and 19 degrees. These two houses are where these energies are speaking to you, are giving you messages, options to pursue, things to look into to determine a healing remedy or solution. And that is happening throughout the month of November. Now, as we move through the middle of the month, we have a Taurus full moon conjunct Uranus at 24 degrees of Taurus, as well as Saturn stationing direct on the same day, on November 15th. So the middle of November marks a turning point, and let's discuss each of these briefly. The Taurus full moon at 24 degrees conjunct Uranus is surprises, is bringing up a change you need to make, something that the universe is requiring you to shift. And because it's Uranus, it can be disruptive, shocking, out of the blue, one of those surprises that perhaps ultimately benefits you, even if it is uncomfortable and takes you out of what you were relying upon. One thing I notice about this particular full moon is that with the moon at 24 degrees of Taurus, conjunct Uranus, opposing Scorpio at 24 degrees, the luminaries are also creating a cradle. So we have another cradle configuration here at the Taurus full moon, with both the sun and the moon receiving trine and sextile support from Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn and Neptune at 27 degrees of Pisces. I will have a chart for you soon on YouTube going through this particular Taurus full moon, but just know that it's our second cradle configuration. Again, reiterating the theme of being a cosmic container for these evolutionary changes that are happening. And even though they can be powerful and overwhelming, the trines and the sextiles are supportive. There's a part of you that knows this is right on time and that you're ready. There's a deep part of your soul that is absolutely trusting what you're moving through as you're being guided to the other side of a fear, a worry, or a deep, intense process. There's a part of you that can feel how much your foundational frequency is solid. And that's how I do see this energy, where even amongst the surprises and discomfort that can come up, there's a part of you that knows, I'm ready for this. I can handle this. Even if it feels like it's a dark passage and I'm not certain how it's going to play out, I know there's rewards on the other side of this. And that with that cradle, it's like the universe is holding you. And that's another way to understand a cradle aspect, is that you're being held by a much bigger universal force. You're being carried through something that is foreign and unknown, but there's deep support here. And if you can trust that, if you can go into that part of your own consciousness, it's going to alleviate some of the overwhelm. Also, during that Taurus full moon, we have Saturn stationing direct on November 15th. This occurs at 9:20 a.m. Eastern Time. And it also means that Saturn is moving slowly during the month of November. Now, Saturn stationed retrograde back on June 29th, and that occurred at 19 degrees of Pisces. So as Saturn prepares to station direct, and does station direct on November 15th, there is a standstill here. There is a need to call back all your energy across various times, realms, places, dimensions, and to ground it into this present reality, which Saturn represents. To call back everywhere that you have felt dispersed or emotionally drawn. Bring your intention to that station direct on November 15th. And listen to what is rising up in your intuition. Saturn in Pisces is more reflective and internal. It's a receptive energy of hearing yourself, hearing your own wisdom and what you need to trust. And I feel that this stationing direct is requiring us to get quiet so that we can hear that. We can hear it in the present moment, and we can truly trust that what you've been reviewing since the end of June is providing you with new messages of what to do going forward. You might have understandings of what you need to cut out, what is complete, what you're done with. You no longer have energy for it going forward, even if you were kind of swimming in it or understanding that, well, what about this? Or, oh, what about that? The Saturn direct wants you to have greater clarity. And I'm seeing this as the visual of a purification process. And that purifying at a soul level takes time. But once it occurs, you have clarity. You have a deeper understanding of what you are closing out and done with. And that's part of the gifts of this Saturn that has been retrograde in Pisces, is asking you to get clear and to be strong in your intuitive abilities and in trusting what is best for you now. Saturn is where we have to face life alone. We have to be in our own energy, stand on our own 2 feet with a strong, straight backbone, and not allow external influences to take us off our course or to sway us away from a purpose or a mission. Saturn stationing direct is asking you to stand strong in whatever you've been contemplating, especially since late June, and to trust yourself above all else and to allow other things to fall away or to fall off. There's a sense here of once you have clarity and you trust your own knowingness, you can allow things to detach from you and essentially allow the cards to fall where they may. You will have to face something on your own terms and in your own way, because Saturn in Pisces is also connecting with your soul's history, your soul's karma, what you know you have to complete, and perhaps what you've been pushed to do differently, or where you've had to manage your energy in a higher form. Again, Saturn is about your singular experience where you answer to yourself. And in Pisces, you answer to your own God, your own universe, your own angels and spirit guides. That's it. That's the communications. No one else is involved here. So understanding that Saturn has been strengthening you for this station direct could be very rewarding and show you how you've been able to navigate some storms and intense weather. And that even if you've been knocked away from your core, even if some things have slammed into you and have been quite destabilizing, come back to answering to yourself and to your own connection with the universe. Because as Saturn moves direct, it could feel like you're showing up in the world with a new frequency, a new sense of confidence and strength in yourself, as well as more determination around what is true for you and what is not. So I feel this is a powerful time period here, that middle of November with Saturn stationing direct and the Taurus Full Moon conjunct Uranus. You may be surprised at what you've realized, at what you've come to understand about what you need and what you want. And conversely, you could observe the same in people around you. Now, the next significant energy for us here in November 2024 is Pluto re-entering Aquarius for the final time, meaning Pluto moves into Aquarius and will stay here for 20 years until 2044. So this also signifies how November is truly completing and closing out very big chapters. And our task is to work with these energies, as I've been discussing, but to know that it's very real. And part of the closing out of these chapters could be bringing up deep emotions within you that you don't logically or rationally understand. You could have a sense of deep sorrow, deep grief, that there are big things ending, and it's stirring up within you more than you expected or more than you thought. This is part of Pluto's work. Pluto does this to us at a base frequency. It requires us to dig in to more than what we even realized was there. So the emotional intensity is very real, especially throughout November. You could also feel relief. Relief that something is closed out and done. You could feel that you've really crossed a significant finish line for yourself. You could feel that you're ready for a break based on everything you've been moving through and churning through. Pluto is now done with Capricorn, which was a chapter that started for us in 2008. And you know, in astrology, we say these years and we throw things out, but it can take time to really process exactly what that means for you. Really what has transformed for you as Pluto has moved through the Capricorn energies in your chart. It has taken Pluto about 16 years to move through all 30 degrees of Capricorn. And so you could be looking back on what has powerfully changed for you in the Capricorn house or houses in your chart. What you've had to evolve and release, the part of your life that is permanently over, parts of yourself that no longer exist, where you were forced to make deep changes that could have felt quite powerless and out of your control, which is a Pluto hallmark. Plutonic energy really feels like you're in it and you have no choice, but really the choice is in how you own your energies and what you're understanding about new levels of power that are now opening up to you. So as Pluto moves into Aquarius on November 19th and stays there, there is a significant shift in the cosmos. There is a big closing and completing of energies that we've already been in for 2 years. And you could have felt like you've been in that wobble space. You know, you've been moving back and forth. And now something is meant to be clearer for you, stronger, as well as powerfully complete in the Capricorn areas of yourself and areas of your life. And I want to say on a personal note, just something to share with you about Pluto, is that since 2006, I have had 14 Pluto transits in my chart. There was only 1 year that I did not have a Pluto transit. Oh, I remember that year. But I have had so many Plutonic energies working with me personally that required all areas of my life to change, all areas of myself to evolve, that I look back on this Pluto in Capricorn transit and I have such gratitude and grace for the work of Pluto. And I know that many of you out there have been going through a lot with Pluto in Capricorn, and you've been in it for years. You are exhausted. You are so over it, but you've held strong. You've stayed focused on the bigger picture of it all, and you've powerfully owned that this is what you signed up for in this lifetime. And I will tell you something. Pluto delivers. Pluto rewards you beyond what you could have fathomed for yourself when you dig in and power up beyond what you've known before. So know that is what's happening for those of you who've been in it with the Pluto in Capricorn forces. and that it has sculpted you and reformed you into a new version of yourself that will be worth it and that will pay off. So yes, I've had 14 transits of Pluto. So when someone says they're moving through their first Pluto transit, I'm like, okay, you've totally got this. Like, I was through 5 Pluto transits before I was like, all right, this is really hard. Only 9 more to go. So when you've been through a lot of Pluto transits, you get used to that energy and you get used to the deep healing, processing, and intensity that's required. So I also offer this as a promise and a long-term perspective to those of you who see Pluto transits occurring and coming up in your own chart, especially if you have fixed signs. Your fixed energy is going to be permanently changing. Resistance is futile. I know you'll put up a big fight and you will stand strong, heels in cement and everything you can do to resist it. But actually, the better approach is to use the fixed energy to stabilize your core, as everything else is going to churn and change beyond your grasp or what you can manage. When you follow your transits, it's really easy to be afraid of those plutonic energies as they arise. But I just want to share my own personal experience is that it's worth it and that the storm will finally clear, the energies will improve, you will get to the other side, and it's really only in hindsight that you may see the gifts and rewards of Pluto. So we're all going through a collective shift into the real Pluto in Aquarius era that starts here in November. And even though we've been sampling it since 2023, specifically March to June 2023, and then again January to August 2024, now we fully enter into what we are going to be permanently shifting on the planet. And I've covered that in a number of previous podcasts. Be sure to check out my Pluto playlist on YouTube, where I have brought together for you all of those Pluto episodes so you can review as well as get a heads up of how Pluto in Aquarius will be working with us now going forward. And so the final energy I want to touch on that we are moving through in November 2024 is that Mercury enters Sagittarius on November 3rd and then will begin retrograde on November 25th. So Mercury retrograde, November 25th until December 15th. Yes, it goes into December. Mercury retrograde begins at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, and Mercury retrograde will travel back to 6 degrees of Sagittarius until December 15th. So this gives us 2 months of Mercury in Sagittarius. And this means as well that Mercury retrograde is going to be such a wild card, as there will be an opposition to Jupiter in Gemini, as well as squares to Saturn in Pisces. So here we have a Mercury retrograde with a mutable T-square. Honestly, it's not great travel energy. It's not good communication energy. There is going to be a sense of, what do I believe? What do I think? What do I trust? What's real? And a lot is going to be up in the air. There will be big statements. There will be uncertainty around what to count on and what is real. Now, one thing that stands out to me during this Mercury retrograde is that Mercury in Sagittarius is in his detriment in Sag and is opposing Jupiter in Gemini, also in his detriment, and they're in mutual reception, meaning they're in each other's rulership and they're both in detriment. It's weird. And then both are squaring Saturn in Pisces. So this is going to be a Mercury retrograde of changes, choices, options, indecision, lack of clarity, and needing to just go with the options as they present themselves. Now, it's not realistic to say don't make any choices for 3 weeks. Like, that isn't real. That's not what's going to happen. But there's so much in flux here and there's so much uncertainty that just adjust your expectations and your assumptions. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. If you're going to travel, for example, because this does occur during the US Thanksgiving holiday, have a backup plan. Have other ways to get there, other choices you can make, or at least prepare for things not coming together and not happening. That's, of course, a worst case scenario. If there's, say, a giant snowstorm and there's polar vortex storms or a nor'eastern storm, obviously that's going to have effects on all transportation methods. This also brings up communication snafus, especially when both Mercury and Jupiter are squaring Saturn, where things are shut down or disabled. Information isn't getting through. You get the gist. So yeah, this is a particularly interesting Mercury retrograde. It feels quite exaggerated and big, like one for the history books kind of thing. And I'm going to speak in exaggerated form because that's also the theme of this Mercury retrograde, is that everything's exaggerated and bigger to the point of being ridiculous. And hopefully there's some humor we can find as well. So I'll have a separate show for you discussing the specifics of this Mercury retrograde, where I'll go through exactly when Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius opposes Jupiter in Gemini retrograde, and when there is the square to Saturn in Pisces. Plus, don't forget, we will have Mars moving very slowly throughout the month of November. And that is actually the final thing I wanted to say, because Mars is moving slowly in Leo starting on November 3rd and approaching Mars retrograde on December 6th. So for the month of November, Mars in Leo, I get this visual of the lion coming out of the den, Cancer being the den or the hideaway, and walking very cautiously and slowly to see what's going on. What's the right move here? What do I do next? What are my primal instincts telling me to go for? And so this Mars moving slowly in Leo is preparing for the retrograde that begins December 6th at 6 degrees of Leo, where Mars will then re-enter the den, return to Cancer in January. So a slow-moving Mars throughout this month is cautious, alert, aware, wants to conserve energy and not be too hasty or move too fast, which can be tricky for any fire sign. But I feel that this energy could serve us well when we know how to work with it, especially as that Mercury retrograde begins towards the end of November on November 25th. And I'll also have a separate episode for you discussing this Mars retrograde, because we're going to need to be more self-aware in what we put energy towards, what we really want to create, where we're going to be determined to see something through. But the upcoming retrograde is a pullback and a slowdown. It means there will be delays, setbacks, and we could lose confidence in ourselves or in a process. So what we're going to be seeing here in November is that it is better to hedge your bets, to not go full gusto, to not charge ahead, even if that's what the fixed fire of Leo desires. There is more of this cautious energy here that we need to wrangle and know that it's part of a longer term process. So that also plays into these travel and communication energies of the Mercury retrograde, which is also in a fire sign of Sagittarius. Fire signs need to be more tempered in November and December, and we also need to be willing to hold back and pause more often throughout November. Now, as always, I will keep discussing these energies throughout the month every Wednesday on my Wednesday podcast, where we look at what is happening in the transiting energies for the week. So please join me for each of those Wednesday podcast episodes. Also in November, I'm offering for the first time ever an opportunity to connect with you through 5 live astrology workshops. And each workshop focuses in on one of your personal planets. So there will be a workshop discussing sun sign energies, moon sign, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Each workshop will be 90 minutes long, including Q&A time, where I will teach and then I'll be able to answer your questions specifically about planets in your chart. I'm so excited about this because I love being able to assist you in understanding the layers of energy in your chart. So this is perfect for both beginner and more intermediate level astrology enthusiasts, because we're not just talking about the basics here. I want to show you what is also significant about each of these planets in your chart, because there's things that are going to click for you and it's like, that makes sense. That explains why I need certain things on a daily basis. I'm also going to show you more about how to work with your Mercury and how to balance it, how to harness what your Mars is communicating to you about your body, and how to love your body, accept your body, especially through your Mars sign. So we're going to touch on all of that plus a lot more through these live interactions. And this is happening on Saturday, November 16th. Where you can join me live, and there will be a replay, of course, for each of these 5 workshops. There are also PDF downloads so that you can learn more of what I am teaching, and an opportunity to connect with other people around the globe who are also excited about these astrology topics. So please join me for this live full day of workshops. I'll put the link below this podcast episode. And I hope this is right on time for you to discover more about your astrology chart. And be sure to check out the other astrology programs and courses I have available over at mollymccord.online, where you will find courses on how to read your solar return chart, how to read your progressed astrology chart. You can learn more about transiting planets. You can learn about relationships, partnerships, and connections in your chart, and so much more. I love teaching and I love helping you understand your chart more, so do check out those courses. Wishing you a beautiful November. It is a power-packed month with highly charged energies, but we've got this. We're here for this. And of course, we are also powerful contributors to what is unfolding on the planet now. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to connecting with you again soon, every Monday and Wednesday. Have a beautiful month of November. I'll see you back here soon.